The ragged, gasping breaths of the tiny gray kitten were barely audible over the relentless downpour, but the sight lying pressed against her frail body, sharing the meager shelter of a soggy cardboard box, stopped Lena's heart mid-beat. It wasn't another kitten. Curled tight against Luna's feverish side, shivering violently, was a puppy so young its eyes were still tightly shut, its fur plastered dark and thin against fragile skin. One creature desperately ill, the other impossibly helpless and abandoned, clinging together in the cold, unforgiving alley. Lena's hands trembled as she knelt in the oily puddle, the icy rainwater instantly soaking through her jeans, the sting, irrelevant against the wave of panic crashing over her. Luna, the little gray kitten she'd been feeding for barely a week, who'd shown such playful spirit just days ago, now lay like a discarded rag doll. Her eyes, usually bright with mischief, were half-closed, dull and sunken, crusted with discharge. Her sides heaved with the effort of each shallow breath, and the smell, a sickly sweet, metallic tang of decay mixed with the sourness of vomit that clung to the damp air around the box. Parvovirus. The word slammed into Lena's mind with the force of a physical blow. She'd seen it before, volunteering, at the shelter. It was a death sentence for unvaccinated kittens, swift and brutal. "Oh, Luna," Lena whispered, her voice cracking, reaching a tentative hand towards the kitten's head. "Sweetheart, no." But Luna didn't react. It was the tiny, almost hairless puppy that flinched at her touch, letting out a thin, reedy whimper that cut through the drumming rain. Its tiny mouth gaped blindly, searching for a nipple that wasn't there. How long had they been here? How had this newborn puppy, utterly dependent, ended up here with Luna? The mystery was secondary, drowned by the crushing urgency. Luna was dying. Right now. Lena's mind raced. The emergency vet was 20 minutes away. 20 minutes Luna might not have. Carefully, agonizingly aware of every fragile bone beneath Luna's skin, Lena scooped the kitten into her hands. She was frighteningly light, burning hot even through the chill of the rain. The tiny body offered no resistance, just a terrifying limpness. The sudden movement jostled the puppy, sending it tumbling sideways into the cold, wet cardboard, its whimpers escalating into panicked cries. Lena froze, heart hammering against her ribs. "Leave the puppy?" Impossible. Its cries were a physical ache. But Luna needed help now. Every second felt like sand slipping through an hourglass. Gritting her teeth, tears mixing with the rain on her face, Lena used her free hand to gently scoop the shivering puppy. Its skin was cold, too cold, its frantic movements weak. She tucked it awkwardly against her chest, cradling Luna in her other hand, trying to shield both from the downpour with her body as she stumbled back towards her car. The alley seemed longer, darker, the rain heavier. The drive was a nightmare. Luna lay motionless on the passenger seat, wrapped in Lena's thin scarf, her breathing terrifyingly shallow and rapid. Beside her, nestled in a hastily grabbed towel, the puppy cried ceaselessly, a high-pitched, desperate sound that scraped Lena's raw nerves. The scent of sickness filled the car, a grim counterpoint to the frantic puppy's need. Lena drove one-handed, the other constantly reaching over, fingers brushing Luna's side, desperate to feel the faint rise and fall, whispering frantic. Reassurances she didn't believe. "Hold on, baby, hold on. We're almost there. Just hold on." The emergency vet clinic's fluorescent lights were blindingly harsh after the gloom. The receptionist's eyes widened as Lena burst in, dripping, clutching the two tiny, distressed bundles. "Kitten, parvovirus, and this puppy, I don't—" "No!" Lena gasped, her words tumbling over each other. The vet tech, a woman named Sarah with kind, tired eyes, took Luna first, her expression instantly grave as she felt the kitten's temperature and saw her condition. "Get her into isolation now," she snapped to another tech. Then her gaze fell on the shivering, crying puppy Sarah was now holding. And this one, barely a day or two old, needs warmth and fluids immediately. Where did you find them together? Lena could only shake her head, numb with exhaustion and terror, watching Luna disappear through swinging doors. The question hung heavy, unanswered. How? Why? The wait in the sterile, antiseptic-smelling waiting room was agony. Lena paced, the image of Luna's limp body seared into her mind. The vet, Dr. Evans, emerged after what felt like hours, his face etched with concern. He confirmed the worst: advanced feline parvovirus. Luna was severely dehydrated, her white blood cell count critically low, her fever dangerously high. The prognosis is guarded, Lena, he said gently but firmly. Parvo attacks rapidly in kittens this small. We've started aggressive IV fluids, antibiotics, anti-nausea meds, but her body is very weak. The next 24 to 48 hours are critical. The cost estimate he handed her was staggering. Lena, barely scraping by as a freelance graphic designer, felt the floor tilt. How could she afford this? But how could she not? Luna's life hung in the balance. Do everything, Lena whispered, her voice raw. Please. Then Dr. Evans turned to the puppy. This little fellow, he's a fighter, considering. Hypothermic, dehydrated but stable for now. We're warming him and giving him fluids via tube. But, he hesitated. He needs round-the-clock care. Feeding every 2 hours. Stimulation to eliminate. Constant warmth. Without a mother, it's incredibly intensive. Lena stared at the tiny creature now sleeping in an incubator in the treatment area, a heat lamp bathing him in a warm glow. He looked impossibly small and vulnerable. She had Luna fighting for her life. How could she possibly care for a newborn puppy? The weight felt crushing. Where had he come from? Who had abandoned him with a dying kitten? The mystery deepened, twisting into a knot of fear and responsibility. Lena brought Luna home the next day, setting up a strict quarantine area in her small bathroom, easy to disinfect. Luna was a ghost of herself, listless, refusing the critical recovery food Lena painstakingly offered via syringe, her body racked with tremors. Despair settled over Lena like a suffocating blanket. She spent hours on the floor beside the kitten, whispering, pleading, crying silent tears. The vet bills mounted. The exhaustion was bone deep. Caring for the puppy, whom she'd named Scout for his unlikely survival, was relentless. Every 2 hours, through the night, warming formula, feeding him drop by painstaking drop with a tiny bottle, massaging his tiny body. It was a brutal rhythm of anxiety and fatigue. Then, 3 days into the vigil, something shifted. Lena was feeding Scout on the living room floor, the bathroom door slightly ajar so she could hear Luna. Scout, stronger now, his eyes just starting to open into milky blue slits, wriggled in her hands. As she finished, a weak, pitiful mewl came from the bathroom. Lena's heart clenched, but Scout's tiny head jerked towards the sound. He let out a small, answering whine. Lena held her breath. She carried Scout closer to the bathroom door. Luna mewled again, a faint, miserable sound. Scout whined once more, a little louder, more insistent. Was it coincidence? Hope, fragile as a spiderweb, flickered in Lena's chest. Could this tiny creature sense Luna's distress? The next morning, Lena took a desperate chance. She carefully disinfected Scout's carrier, placed him inside on a warm blanket, and set it just outside Luna's open bathroom door, within sight but safely distanced. Luna lay in her heated bed, unmoving. Lena held her breath. Scout, awake and restless, began his usual soft whimpering. Luna's ear, just the tip visible above the blanket, twitched, slowly, painfully. Her head lifted. Her dull eyes blinked open, focusing slowly on the source of the sound. She stared at the carrier, at the small, squirming shape within. Scout let out another whine. And Luna made a sound. Not a cry of pain, but a low, rumbling purr. Faint, thready, but undeniably there. It was the first sign of life Lena had seen beyond suffering in days. Tears streamed down her face. Was it possible? Could this orphaned pup, this unexpected burden, be reaching Luna where all her care couldn't? That afternoon, a different kind of shadow appeared. Lena was washing syringes at the kitchen sink when movement caught her eye outside the window. A cat. Not Luna. A large, battle-scarred tabby with one torn ear, sitting perfectly still on the fence bordering her tiny backyard. Its gaze wasn't on the bird feeder or the sunlit patch of grass. It was fixed intently, unblinkingly, on Lena's back door. The door leading to the room where Scout whimpered in his carrier and Luna fought. Her battle. Lena froze, the hairs on her neck prickling. Was this the mother? But the cat looked feral, hardened. Its stare held an unnerving intensity, not maternal concern, but something else. Something watchful, almost, assessing. It stayed for 10 minutes, motionless, then vanished as silently as it appeared. A chill unrelated to the weather ran down Lena's spine. What did it want? Was it connected to Scout? Was it a threat? The fragile hope Scout had sparked now felt perilously thin, overshadowed by this new, unsettling presence. Lena doubled down on vigilance. She kept the curtains drawn, her nerves frayed. Luna continued to improve, infinitesimally but steadily. She began taking tiny licks of recovery gel. She purred weakly whenever Scout was near, his presence seeming to anchor her. Scout thrived, his eyes fully open, his wriggles turning into clumsy attempts to crawl. He seemed drawn to Luna's scent, whimpering towards the bathroom door. The mystery of their bond deepened, a fragile lifeline in the storm. Lena started to dare to hope. Maybe, just maybe, they would pull through. She set up a playpen in the living room for Scout, letting him have supervised time outside his carrier, always keeping him visible from the bathroom door where Luna watched with growing interest. The vet visit that week brought cautious optimism. Luna's white blood cell count was rising. She was holding down food. "She's not out of the woods," Dr. Evans warned, "but she's fighting. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." He glanced at Scout, now a plump, wriggly handful snuffling in Lena's arms. "That little guy seems to be good medicine." The fragile peace shattered that evening. Lena was on the living room floor, exhausted but smiling, watching Scout clumsily bat at a soft toy. Luna, looking brighter, was resting in her open carrier nearby, observing the puppy with drowsy curiosity. The late summer dusk painted the room in deep oranges and purples. Suddenly, a low, guttural yowl split the quiet, not from inside, but terrifyingly close. Right outside the back door, Lena scrambled to her feet, heart pounding. Through the glass pane of the door, silhouetted against the fading light, was the large tabby. It wasn't sitting calmly this time. It was pressed against the glass, its body low, muscles coiled, its single good eye blazing with an intensity that looked like fury. It let out another yowl, a sound of pure aggression, claws scraping against the wood of the doorframe. Inside, Scout let out a sharp, terrified yelp and scrambled backwards. Luna hissed weakly, her fur fluffing up despite her weakness, a low growl rumbling in her thin chest. Fear, primal and cold, flooded Lena. Was it after Scout? Luna? Both? Before she could react, before she could even grab her phone or think of defense, the unthinkable happened. With a sickening crack, the flimsy lock on the old door gave way under the tabby's powerful lunge. The door flew open, banging against the wall. The feral cat exploded into the room, a snarling, spitting whirlwind of claws and teeth, its burning gaze fixed solely on the terrified puppy, cowering on the rug. Lena screamed, throwing herself between the cat and Scout, her mind blank with terror. The tabby didn't hesitate. It leapt, the world narrowed to a tunnel of snarling fur, bared teeth, and Lena's own choked scream. Time didn't slow. It fractured. The tabby, a blur of muscle and rage, was airborne, claws extended like hooked daggers, aimed straight at Scout's cowering form. Instinct, raw and primal, overrode thought. Lena threw herself forward, not towards the cat, but over Scout, curling her body into a protective shield. She felt the impact, a heavy thud against her back, followed instantly by searing lines of fire raking through her thin t-shirt. A guttural snarl vibrated against her spine. Claws hooked fabric and skin. Pain exploded, sharp and shocking, but the terror for Scout and Luna was a white-hot brand overriding everything. "No!" she roared, twisting violently, trying to dislodge the furious weight. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Luna, fueled by adrenaline and fierce protectiveness for the pup who'd anchored her back to life, launch herself from her carrier with a strength she shouldn't possess. A weak, raspy hiss tore from the kitten's throat as she landed, unsteady but defiant, between the snarling tabby and the spot where Lena shielded Scout. Luna's tiny frame puffed up, every hair on end, her sunken eyes blazing with a ferocity that belied her frailty. The tabby, momentarily startled by Luna's sudden attack and Lena's thrashing, recoiled slightly, landing on its feet with a low, menacing growl. Its single blazing eye darted between the defiant kitten, the human writhing in pain, and the terrified puppy whimpering beneath Lena. The air crackled with tension, thick with the smell of fear, aggression, and the lingering scent of sickness. Lena gasped, pain radiating from her back, her heart hammering like a trapped bird. One wrong move, and those claws could find Scout or Luna. She had no weapon, no plan beyond shielding them with her body. Luna stood her ground, trembling violently, but refusing to back down, emitting a continuous low growl that sounded like tearing paper. Scout, utterly terrified, pressed himself flat against the floor under Lena, his tiny body shaking uncontrollably. "How do I stop this?" the thought screamed in Lena's mind. The feral cat looked poised to attack again, its muscles tensing, a low rumble building in its chest. The fragile sanctuary of the living room had become a war zone, just as Lena braced. For another lunge, a sudden violent convulsion racked Luna's small body. The defiant stance crumpled. She retched, a thin stream of bile staining the carpet, then collapsed onto her side, panting rapidly, her brief surge of strength utterly spent. The parvovirus, momentarily forgotten in the adrenaline rush, reasserted its cruel grip. Seeing Luna fall seemed to break the tabby's focus. Its burning gaze flickered from the helpless kitten to Scout, then to Lena, bleeding and breathing hard. Confusion warred with aggression in its feral eyes. It took a hesitant step back, then another, its growl subsiding into a wary hiss. With one last unreadable look, was it frustration? Regret? It turned and bolted back through the broken door, vanishing into the twilight as swiftly as it had appeared. Relief washed over Lena, so potent it made her dizzy. But it was instantly replaced by fresh terror. "Luna! Baby, no, no, no!" She scrambled towards the kitten, ignoring the fiery pain in her back. Luna lay limp, her breathing shallow and ragged, eyes glazed. The attack, the stress, it had pushed her fragile body to the brink. Scout crawled out from under Lena, whimpering piteously, nudging Luna's still form with his cold nose. The victory over the intruder felt hollow, ashes in Lena's mouth. Luna was crashing, hard. The second emergency vet trip was a blur of panic and guilt. Lena held Luna wrapped in a blanket, her fingers constantly checking for the faint pulse in the kitten's neck. whispering desperate pleas against the soft fur. "Stay with me, sweetheart. Please, please stay. You fought so hard, just hold on." Scout, bundled beside her in his carrier, was uncharacteristically silent, his milky blue eyes wide and watchful, as if sensing the gravity of the situation. The harsh light of the treatment room, Lena felt utterly broken. The claw marks on her back stung, but the agony in her heart was worse. She'd failed. She'd let danger in, and it had stolen Luna's hard-won progress. As the vet tech gently took Luna for emergency care, Lena's hand lingered for a second, her fingertip brushing the tiny cold pad of Luna's paw. It was a silent promise, a plea, a transfer of every ounce of desperate love she possessed. Scout let out a soft, questioning whine from his carrier, his gaze fixed on Lena's tear-streaked face. In that shared moment of raw fear and helplessness, the bond between human, kitten, and pup deepened, forged in the fires of shared crisis. The wait was excruciating. Dr. Evans emerged, his expression grim. Luna's temperature had plummeted. She was back on the brink of severe dehydration. The stress had triggered a dangerous relapse. "We're doing everything we can, Lena," he said, his voice heavy. "Her little body is exhausted. We've restarted intensive IV support, warming, but her will to fight, that's up to her now." He paused, looking at Scout in his carrier. "And the puppy? Any change?" Lena shook her head numbly. Dr. Evans nodded thoughtfully. "Bring him in. Keep him contained, but near her. Sometimes the most unexpected things can spark something." Hope felt like a cruel joke, but Lena clung to it. She brought Scout's carrier into the quiet isolation room where Luna lay, tiny and still under warming blankets, connected to a web of tubes and monitors. The steady, slow beep of the heart monitor was the only sound. Lena sat on the floor beside the incubator, opening Scout's carrier door. He crept out hesitantly, sniffing the unfamiliar sterile air. His gaze immediately found Luna. He let out a tiny, questioning whimper. Then, he did something extraordinary. He walked unsteadily to the edge of the incubator, stretched his neck as far as he could, and gently licked the clear plastic wall near Luna's head. A soft, mournful whine vibrated in his tiny chest. Lena held her breath, tears streaming silently. The monitor continued its slow, steady beep. 1 minute passed. 2. Then, slowly, miraculously, Luna's head stirred. Her eyelids fluttered open, dull, but aware. Her gaze drifted unfocused at first, then settled on Scout's anxious face pressed against the plastic. A sound emerged, faint as a sigh, but unmistakable, a weak, thready purr. It was the tiniest spark in the darkness, but it was there. Scout whined again, wagging his little nub of a tail frantically. Lena pressed her hand against the incubator over Luna's small body, feeling a sob break free. "She's fighting!" She heard him. Luna's recovery this time felt different, steadier, stronger. The spark Scout ignited in the vet's office didn't fade. Back home, Lena kept Scout safely contained but always visible to Luna. The kitten began eating with real appetite, her purr growing stronger whenever Scout was near, watching his clumsy antics with drowsy fascination. The claw marks on Lena's back healed into angry red lines, a constant reminder of the night terror. She reinforced the door, her nerves still jangling. Then, a week after the attack, she saw the tabby again. Not charging, not snarling. Sitting on the fence, bathed in the late afternoon sun. Lena froze, fear coiling in her stomach. But the cat's posture was different. Less coiled aggression, more watchful stillness. Its single eye wasn't blazing. It seemed almost sad. Lena noticed something else. The cat's teats were swollen. She was a female, and she looked thin, worn. A realization struck Lena like lightning. She wasn't attacking Scout. She was drawn to him. The frantic yowling, the intensity. It wasn't predatory fury. It was the desperate, confused anguish of a mother who had lost her own litter, smelling. A newborn pup, a potential surrogate, but unable to reach him, trapped by her feral nature and human barriers. The broken door wasn't an attack. It was a mother's frantic, misguided attempt to reach a crying baby. Lena's fear dissolved, replaced by a profound wave of pity and understanding. She cautiously opened the reinforced back door just a crack, placing a small bowl of strong-smelling tuna far out on the step. The tabby watched, tense, but didn't flee. Lena retreated slowly. The next day, the bowl was empty. Lena began putting food out regularly. She named the tabby Shadow for her silent presence. Slowly, cautiously, trust built. Shadow would appear, eat, and watch the house, her gaze often lingering on the window where Scout played. One afternoon, Lena was sitting on the back step, Luna, curled contentedly in her lap, finally gaining weight, her fur regaining its soft sheen. Scout was exploring the safe confines of a playpen nearby, tumbling over his own paws. Shadow appeared on the fence. Lena stayed perfectly still, holding Luna close. Shadow watched Scout for a long moment, then her gaze shifted to Luna. A low rumbling sound, almost like a purr, but deeper, more resonant, vibrated in the air. It wasn't hostile. It sounded protective. Luna, safe in Lena's arms, blinked slowly at the large cat, then nestled deeper, purring in response. It was a silent acknowledgement, a passing of the torch. Shadow seemed to understand Luna was safe now. Her focus remained on Scout, the orphan she couldn't mother but couldn't forget. Lena felt an unexpected connection bridge the gap between wild and domestic, a shared language of loss and instinctive care. The final twist came subtly. Luna, declared officially parvo-free after weeks of anxious checkups, was finally allowed near Scout. Their bond was instantaneous and profound. Scout followed Luna everywhere, his clumsy puppy energy softened by her calm presence. Luna, in turn, seemed to adopt him. She groomed his ears with rough kitten licks, slept curled against his warm side, and batted gently at his wagging tail. They were an inseparable duo, a testament to an impossible friendship born in the shadow of death. Shadow remained a fixture. She never tried to come inside again, but she claimed a corner of the porch. Lena provided shelter, food, and quiet companionship. One crisp autumn morning, Lena watched from the window. Scout, now a sturdy, playful pup, was wrestling with a toy in the enclosed yard. Luna sat regally on the porch railing, supervising. Shadow lay nearby, basking in the sun. As Scout bounded towards the porch, tripping over his own feet, Shadow didn't flinch. Instead, she stretched out a massive paw and gently, ever so gently, tapped his rumbling belly as he tumbled past. It wasn't a correction. It was a touch, an acceptance. Scout yipped happily and licked her paw. Shadow didn't pull away. She just watched him, that single eye holding a depth of quiet contentment Lena hadn't seen before. 3 orphans. One rescued from a deadly virus, one found abandoned in an alley, one hardened by the streets. They hadn't just found safety, they had woven themselves into an unlikely healing family. Lena's heart swelled, full to bursting. The journey had been paved with fear, pain, and staggering vet bills eased by unexpected donations from viewers touched by their story online. But it led here, to this quiet moment of perfect, hard-won belonging. The quiet rhythm of their life now held a profound music. The soft thump of Scout's tail against the floor as Luna groomed him, the deep rumbling purr that sometimes emanated from Shadow's spot on the porch in the evenings, the comforting weight of Luna asleep on Lena's lap. It was a symphony composed not of blood, but of shared survival, of wounds licked clean by unexpected kindness, and a bond that defied every boundary nature had set. They were proof that sometimes the deepest darkness holds the seeds of the most unexpected light, and that family isn't always born. It's built, one fragile, courageous act of trust at a time, in the quiet spaces between a kitten's purr, a puppy's sigh, and the watchful gaze of a scarred guardian who finally found her place in the sun.